In 1925, a man walked into the company that printed Portugal's money and asked them to print more. They said yes. The notes were real, the paper was real, the signatures were real, and a whole country almost collapsed because of it. Most forgers make fake money. This man did something far stranger. He made a fake permission slip, then let a real printer make real money for him. Not a single note was counterfeit. That was the truly terrifying part. His name was Artur Alves Reis. Born in Lisbon in 1896, the son of an undertaker who went bankrupt. He grew up watching his family lose everything, and he quietly decided that rules were just paperwork. He began studying engineering, but the money ran out fast. So he quit, married a woman whose family looked down on him, and sailed for the Portuguese colony of Angola in 1916, carrying one very important piece of paper. That paper was a diploma from the Polytechnic School of Engineering of Oxford University. It listed 21 subjects he had supposedly mastered. There was only one small problem. The school did not exist. He had invented it himself. Nobody in Angola checked. Within a few years, the boy who never finished his first year of college was running public works projects, and then the colony's railways. He had learned something dangerous. People believed documents. That was the lesson that shaped everything. Officials do not verify. They see a stamp, a signature, a seal, and their brain switches off. Reis understood that paperwork was not proof of anything. Paperwork was permission. In 1924, he got greedy. He bought a struggling Angolan railway company with a check drawn on an American account that held almost nothing, planning to pay for the company using the company's own money once he controlled it. It nearly worked. Then the check bounced, and Reis was arrested and thrown into a cell back in Portugal. And here is where the story turns. Because that prison cell is where the greatest fraud in history was born. He sat there for nearly 2 months, with nothing to do but read. So he read the charter of the Bank of Portugal, the rulebook of the institution that controlled every single escudo in the entire country. What he found astonished him. The Bank of Portugal was not really a government department. It was largely a private company owned by shareholders, and it held the exclusive right to print the money of an entire nation. Stranger still, the bank did not print its own notes. It sent the job abroad to a famous London firm. And nobody in Portugal seriously counted what came back. There was no real audit of how many notes existed. Sit with that for 1 second. If you could convince the printer in London that the bank had ordered more notes, those notes would be genuine. Same plates, same ink, same paper, impossible to detect because they were not fake. Reis walked out of that jail with a plan containing no counterfeiting at all. He was not going to imitate money. He was going to trick an entire country into manufacturing money and politely handing it to him. But he needed a story. A private citizen cannot walk in and order banknotes, so he invented a reason. Angola, the colony, was desperate for cash and investment. A secret emergency loan to Angola would explain everything beautifully. The story went like this. A group of international investors would lend 100 million escudos to Angola. To fund that loan, the Bank of Portugal would quietly authorize a special printing of 500 escudo notes. Secret, because if the public learned Portugal was borrowing that much, the currency would crash overnight. And notice the genius. Secrecy was not a weakness in his story. Secrecy was the reason nobody would be allowed to ask questions. Now he had to build the paperwork. Reis wrote a long contract, stuffed with legal language, then forged the signatures of the governor of the Bank of Portugal and his deputies, tracing them carefully from genuine documents he had studied. Then came the masterstroke. He carried that thick contract to a Lisbon notary and swore the signatures were real. The notary was busy and the document was long. He never read it. He simply stamped it. The forgery was now notarized. Next, Reis took his freshly notarized lie to the British, French, and German consulates in Lisbon. Each one certified the notary's stamp. They were not checking the contract at all. They were checking a stamp sitting on top of a lie. When he finished, that document looked like the most official paper on earth. Seals of 3 foreign nations, a Portuguese notary, government markings everywhere, and not one human being had verified a single word written inside it. Now he needed respectable faces. He found 3. A Dutch financier called Karel Morang, who held a diplomatic passport. A shadowy German named Adolf Hennies, and José Bandeira, whose brother happened to be Portugal's minister in the Netherlands. That last connection mattered enormously. Diplomatic luggage is not searched. If you needed to move suitcases stuffed with banknotes across borders without one customs officer ever opening them, that was the door, and it was standing wide open. They approached a German printer, then a Dutch one. The Dutch firm refused the job. But then they did something that doomed everybody involved. They handed over a friendly letter of introduction to Sir William Waterlow in London. Waterlow and Sons was among the most respected banknote printers on the planet, and crucially, they were the firm that printed Portugal's actual money. The real plates for the 500 escudo note were sitting in their vault. So Meringue walked into that London office, carrying a contract drowning in official seals, and calmly told Sir William that the Bank of Portugal needed a secret print run for Angola. And Sir William, a careful man, hesitated. He asked for a letter of authorization from the governor of the Bank of Portugal. Perfectly reasonable. Except he made one fatal error. Instead of writing to the bank himself, he asked the men standing in front of him to bring him one. They brought him one, naturally. Reis forged it in an afternoon. Think about what that means. The only real safety check in this entire system was asking the suspects to prove their own innocence, and they happily obliged. Then Sir William noticed something strange. The contract said the new notes should carry serial numbers that already existed on notes in circulation. Duplicates. Every printer alive knows duplicate serial numbers make money impossible to trace. Reis had prepared an answer. The notes would never circulate in Portugal, he explained. They were bound for Angola, where they would be stamped with the colony's name on arrival. The duplicate numbers were simply a safeguard. Sir William accepted it. His own man in Lisbon smelled a rat immediately. Waterlow's representative there sent warning after warning, pointing out that a completely different bank held the legal right to issue notes in Angola. Sir William ignored every single letter. So in early 1925, the presses rolled. 200,000 notes, 500 escudos each, carrying the face of Vasco da Gama. 100 million escudos in total, roughly 1% of everything Portugal produced in a year. And these were not forgeries. They came off the official plates, on official paper, from the official printer of the Bank of Portugal. If bank experts had examined them under a microscope, the notes would have passed, because they were real. The suitcases traveled from London to Lisbon inside diplomatic bags, unopened, unquestioned, untouched. Reis was now sitting on a mountain of perfectly genuine money that officially did not exist. And now he faced a very strange new problem. How on earth do you spend it? A 500 escudo note was an enormous denomination, like handing a shopkeeper a small fortune for a loaf of bread. Spending them openly would attract attention within days. So he built a machine to wash the money quietly. Reis hired street money changers to buy foreign currency and gold-backed cash with his notes, a little here, a little there, all across Lisbon and Porto. Then he went further, and this is where his ambition becomes almost comical. To launder the money properly, Alves Reis founded his very own bank. He called it the Bank of Angola and Metropole, with grand offices in Lisbon. His bank was a miracle. It gave loans at rates nobody could match. It never seemed to need deposits. Money simply poured out of it. Portuguese businessmen believed a financial genius had appeared from absolutely nowhere. And Reis lived the part. Jewels for his wife, cars, estates, a fleet of taxis, wild spending everywhere he went. In Angola, they treated him like a savior, the man who had finally brought money to a starving colony. But one danger remained. Someday, somebody at the Bank of Portugal might actually count the notes. So Reis decided to remove that danger permanently, with the boldest idea of his entire life. He would buy the bank itself. Remember the loophole. The Bank of Portugal had shareholders. Buy enough shares, and he would control the very institution designed to catch him. He could then approve his own print run and bury the crime forever. He needed around 45,000 shares for control, and started buying quietly through brokers. But his buying was so heavy that the share price nearly doubled. By late 1925, he had gathered roughly 10,000. He was close, frighteningly close. Had he taken control of the Bank of Portugal, he could have simply legalized everything afterwards, turned the fake contract into a real one, and walked away as one of Europe's richest men. But money appearing from nowhere always leaves a smell. Journalists at the newspaper O Século began asking how an unknown bank could lend so cheaply without deposits. Rumors spread of a German plot to seize Angola. Meanwhile, in Porto, a Bank of Portugal inspector was staring at piles of 500 escudo notes deposited by Reis's bank. Every note looked flawless. Every note passed every test. He could not find one thing wrong. And then, purely by chance, two notes ended up side by side. Same picture, same paper, same serial number. Two notes that were both completely genuine, and both insisting they were the exact same banknote. The order went out nationwide. Every branch must sort its 500 escudo notes by serial number. Duplicates began surfacing everywhere. On the 5th of December 1925, O Século printed the story, and Portugal woke up to a nightmare. The country came apart. Crowds stormed the Bank of Portugal, desperate to swap their notes for anything solid. And here was the cruel joke. The bank could not tell the fakes from the originals, so it had to honor every last one. Reis was arrested as his ship returned from Angola. His bank was seized. Within days, the President of the Republic resigned in disgust. Faith in the state evaporated. People no longer believed the government could even protect its own money. 5 months later, in May 1926, the army seized power. That coup ended the Portuguese Republic and cleared the road for a quiet economics professor named Antonio Salazar, whose dictatorship would grip Portugal for the next 48 years. Reis got 20 years, found religion in prison, and died broke in 1955. Waterlow lost a devastating lawsuit and never recovered. And the strangest part is this: outside Portugal, almost nobody has ever heard of the man who printed a country into ruin.